Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Crypto Live with. I'm the Bitcoin Broski here today with Kyle, BTC Jack Sparrow, and Bitcoin Birch. Gentlemen, how was your weekend?
What's going on?
Pretty good, pretty good. Voice is a little suspect today, but it's the way it goes sometimes.
A little too much fun yesterday?
Yeah, just a little bit. Well, Saturday. It's one of those 2-day hangovers now. I guess that starts to happen when you get older.
Yeah, when you turn 22, really starts to take over. Well, yeah, as someone who's not even in my 20s anymore, I'm just sore. Lived this weekend a normal life. I went for a 30-minute walk, and now I got to stretch it out. Feeling a little bit sore this week. But I had to change a tire yesterday. You guys do that? Or my dad was like, "Why the hell did you do that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And my dad's like a blue collar, get your hands dirty kind of guy. I thought for sure if I didn't change my own tire, my dad would give me shit. I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, I think I threw my back out changing my tire on because I have a Range Rover, big ass wheels by myself, in the parking lot." Anyways, why the hell did you do that? And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Why didn't you use roadside assistance?" And I could have just used my roadside assistance that I have from Geico, and they probably could have came out and done it in 10 minutes. But I don't know. Do you guys change your own tire? What would you do?
I would definitely try to if you have the tools with you to do it. Why not? I mean, I guess you pay for a subscription, but I guess you have only so many times they can come pick you up. So I would rather save it for, I don't know, a moment where I really can fix the problem, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it works like that, on a quota, but
it works. Well, here it works like that. So I get two free moves, but it doesn't really matter what they do. If they need to tow me from France back to Holland, they will do it. It counts as one. So I would rather do that instead of using it for changing a tire.
I didn't know that was even a service. That's pretty tight. Yeah, so I had to change the tire.
Yeah, I'll milk those free services all day long. So Max, I know you got some exciting news, man. How's life over there in Europe?
It's
got anything big coming up?
It's great. It's currently pretty cold. We had some snow here, so I decided that me and Philip were going to move to Portugal for a couple of months to enjoy some warmer weather and a bit more sunshine. Hopefully helping us through the winter with some more energy, and also by doing so having some more energy to pump you guys and the market to some more profitability.
That's it. Well, speaking of pumping the market, today has been interesting so far. I got a ping earlier this morning, a notification from Mr. Jack Sparrow saying that there was the potential for a good move on Bitcoin, and lo and behold, the guy actually knows what he's talking about, right? Just big green dildo, followed by much wow. But dude, Jack, good call there, man. The markets overall, I think, have as they tend to do when Bitcoin makes a $50 to $100 move, everyone's changing the way that they think. But there is some pretty good bullish news out today. And I think the first piece that we wanted to jump into was Mike Mulvaney being appointed by President Donald Trump. And Max, you want to take this story away?
Yeah, sure. So President Trump, who may or not be loved by our viewers. I don't want to get into any political stances or views here, but he appointed a new chief of staff, Nick Mulvaney. And Nick Mulvaney is probably going to be seen in the press quite a few times. He's like a secretary for the president of the United States. So he is in charge of a lot of communication if Trump is not there. And he happens to be a big proponent of Bitcoin. And he's been in the press already saying that he likes Bitcoin a lot. And he also actually criticized the Federal Reserve. And so is this bullish? I think it is going to appeal to some people. I'm not really sure whether the fact that he's Trump's chief of staff, people not liking Trump, whether they will actually flip along on Bitcoin. But it is interesting nonetheless that there is going to be an important person in America, an extra important person in America who's going to be saying buy Bitcoin. So
hopefully he gives financial. Yeah.
Can he say that?
Can he go out and tell people to buy Bitcoin? Yeah, probably. Legally. I mean, it's not like the Trump administration does anything legally today anyways, but we won't make it.
So one thing I will say is, when you think about politics, or really you think about any business, well, and you know what? I think most people that are in crypto, they tend to be a little bit more right leaning, at least in America. But anyways, neither here nor there. When it comes to a corporation or the government in this case, one very, very important overlooked person is the executive assistant, administrative assistant, chief of staff to CEO, president, whatever, right? That's a very, very important role. That means to get on Trump's schedule, you got to go through Mulvaney. Exactly. So it could help in some ways. If he has a bias leaning towards crypto, it could help in some ways of who gets meetings that wouldn't have otherwise gotten them. So, could be good. And he also called Trump a terrible human being in 2016. So
really? That's great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you spent any time on political Twitter? That place is a nightmare. Oh my God. I went down that rabbit hole once. Whew.
Don't do it.
God bless.
I'm trying to do as much as possible to stay away from Twitter as a whole right now. I think that coming towards the holidays, it's good to get some perspective and be a little bit more grateful. A little bit too much salt on Twitter for me lately.
For the few that are listening right now live, I know that most of you will be listening to the podcast version, but I took a little bit of a step back from Twitter. I know I'm not alone in that. We've been working on some stuff that you guys are going to really like, some tools that you'll be able to use. So that's just a quick plug for the couple of you guys that are listening now. There's some really, really cool stuff, free stuff that's going to be coming out from the Bravado fam. So stay tuned for that. Quick plug.
Yeah. Excited for that. Really exciting.
Yeah.
Well, one piece of news is surrounding PayPal. Obviously, there was the PayPal Coinbase news that came out that we'll get into. PayPal has just overall shown a lot of love to the crypto space. We'll talk about the Coinbase stuff, but one of the things that struck me about the article that I thought was really cool is they did like an internal incentive for the employees at PayPal, and it had a cryptocurrency bend to it. They didn't give away crypto or anything like that, but they gave away digital tokens to people within the company, and those people were incentivized to spend those tokens for rewards or getaways or whatever it was. And that's cool. I think that's a step in the right direction. So many Americans are a part of different incentive programs, frequent flyer programs, those kinds of things. And there's a clear carryover to how cryptocurrency can be implemented globally. And I think it's just cool for big companies to start to do this, to educate more people.
Yeah, PayPal is one of the largest merchants on planet Earth. I don't know where they rank. Compared to Braintree or compared to Visa or MasterCard even, but obviously everybody listening right now is familiar with PayPal. So the first thing that I thought to myself, this could be a step in the right direction, as you just mentioned, towards PayPal accepting crypto, right? From a payment standpoint, and how massive that would be. Do you think that's going to happen?
Dude, if that happened, that would be that. You're 100% right. That would be massive. I mean, PayPal is accepted at most places. So, if you can use crypto to actually buy things online, then Bitcoin would be that much closer to fulfilling its mission. So that'd be awesome.
It would be insane. It would honestly be insane, because that would mean that you would probably also be able to buy Bitcoin with PayPal, and that's something that I would be.
And you can today through Coinbase. You can use your PayPal account to buy Bitcoin, but it has to still go through Coinbase. So, if you can do it directly through PayPal, I think the problem is with PayPal, they would need to have a custodial solution.
Right.
I don't keep any money with Coinbase under any circumstances, because if you don't own your private keys, you don't own your crypto, folks, ladies and gentlemen out there. And so PayPal would probably be much the same, right? Where they would have to have their own custodial solution, and they're probably not anywhere near interested in investing in that. Regarding them accepting crypto, however, I do want to point out that John Rainey, he's the CFO of PayPal, right? Back in May, he said that, and here's just the quote, I'm pulling it up. Yeah, in May, he said, right now, we don't see a lot of interest from our merchants, but if it's something that stabilizes in the future and it's a better currency, then we'll certainly support that. And it was important to note that with this recent with this recent little program that PayPal's rolling out for their employees, they do want to point out that these new moves by PayPal do not represent a change in the company's overall stance towards crypto. So I wouldn't get too, I don't expect that we see PayPal accepting crypto in the next 12 to 18 months, but as I think we all said, it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I'll send them an email or I'll call them and asking them
Good luck
if they want to change that. No, I honestly use PayPal a lot. It is the main money payment processor for my company, and so I mean, like I'm not going to talk about amounts, but they process a shitload of money every year, and they always send me these surveys of things they want to change. And cryptocurrency was a question as of late, as more as an interest thing from my side as a business, if I would be interested in accepting it and using it. So they're definitely working on it.
Well, and once upon a time, I was the director of operations for a credit card processing company, and we did about $480 million of processing a year. Actually, the CEO of that company is now a huge proponent of Litecoin. He speaks at a lot of the Litecoin conferences. I'm not going to mention his name on here, but
Charlie Lee.
Feel free to look him up. Yeah, Charlie Lee. He's actually, I think they're pretty good friends, but neither here nor there. I think the biggest impact that's going to come from cryptocurrency being accepted by a PayPal, or their first in, is going to be with the high risk merchants, people that struggle to get merchant accounts through traditional methods. For the companies that can provide those high risk accounts, there's a lot of money to be made in processing those transactions, which means that companies are paying a lot to process those transactions. If they're able to accept crypto for something, and usually these are, adult sites, gambling sites that have some gray area regulation wise. So it becomes a challenge to accept money for them. So crypto has a very clear in there, and you're seeing a lot of them already start to migrate over to crypto. And I think that's where PayPal's first application of accepting cryptocurrency as payment is going to get its strongest foothold, is in those high risk merchants.
And also the home biz op industry, the MLM industry, those guys struggle to maintain merchant accounts. I know a couple of massive whales in that space who do multiple millions of dollars a month selling supplement bullshit on Facebook, and they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads, and they get merchant accounts blocked all the time because when the products are fine, they're whatever average products, but the pitch is oftentimes like make money selling this stuff, which isn't illegal. And I actually had I did quite well in that industry myself. I think Broski, you have too. There's some legitimate ways to make money as a sales affiliate. However, when you tie the selling of these products to like a biz op, like a home business opportunity, you're accepting payment, and then people are joining, and then ultimately 99% of them are failing. So they're hitting they're hitting refunds and chargebacks, and so you see that these merchants in this space really struggle with that. That's another massive opportunity as well, especially because it's one of the largest industries on planet Earth, believe it or not. Like Amway alone is however many billions of dollars of revenue, tens of billions of dollars in this industry. So,
so moving on, one of the crypto favorites that we've talked about a couple of times on this show, we talked about them discussing the launch of their IPO or doing an IPO for their company, is Bitmain. Bitmain's IPO hasn't been on such strong footing since they announced it a couple of months ago now. I believe it was mid-October that we covered it first. But yeah, did you guys get a chance to read the Bitmain article? What did you guys think of that news there?
Not all at once.
Yeah,
I mean, live guys. I know it's Monday, but Jesus,
there's been.
I'm just embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by my voice right now, but I'll just get over that. So obviously they're delaying. I guess the verification of would Bitmain be listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. That makes sense. They're worried because maybe Bitmain's not around in 2 years. I don't think that will be the case, but that seems to be where their fear is coming from. It's a new industry, right? And they are responsible for their clientele, so they don't want to give people access to buy something like Bitmain, a very speculative company, and then the company actually ends up failing. So in that sense, I understand their approach, that being said, I think that they probably won't be disappointed in the performance of Bitmain if they do end up adding it to Hong Kong Exchange. Although I did read in the article that Bitmain has not released their third quarter earnings yet for 2018. They should probably do that because it was probably fairly rough, and that needs to be public knowledge, especially when they're so speculative of whether or not they should be listed. They need to be as transparent as possible, in my opinion. So I guess that would be something that, you know, they need to release if they're serious about their IPO going through.
So I have a question, just a noob question. Is there any benefit to a company to file for an IPO and, you know, after it gets rejected? Is there benefit to the company from that?
Yeah. Publicity is publicity either way. You know, when I was with Grubhub and we went public and there was just a lot of focus on the company, our number one competitor at the time from a market cap perspective, if these were cryptos, was Yelp. And I'll never forget sitting in this meeting and the Yelp CEO put out a statement. They were exploring getting bought out by Yahoo, basically. And the stock pumped like 30%. And then they came out 6 months later and they never said anything else about it. And like 6 months later, like, oh no, that deal fell through. So, you know, publicity is publicity. And I don't think it's necessarily bad. When that news came out about Bitmain doing an IPO, it was on it was way outside of crypto. Every person on Wall Street learned what Bitmain was that day. So, they might have known they were going to get rejected, or at least knew they had a low probability of getting approved, and they made the decision to go forward with it anyways. And it was probably smart publicity until their numbers came under a microscope, and then we realized how unprofitable they are, or at least, I mean, they were making a ton of money, but like how some of the flaws in their logs for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the give and take. I always like to think that smart people make smart decisions, but I guess people make mistakes. But doing that and filing for that IPO, I just had the assumption that there might be some way that they were benefiting outside of what you see, because Bitmain's going to be around. They're not going anywhere.
Bitcoin is.
The company is. Did you say Bitcoin's pumping
right now on?
What are we at?
At 34.40 on Kraken. Bitfinex, it's 35.35.
It's 35.30 on BitMEX.
Yeah, it's 35.30.
34.30. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, it's 34.35. Yeah, so it's making new highs. This is the biggest green candle we've seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about that.
Well, guys, why don't we jump into it? Yeah, what's going on with Bitcoin? You want to bring up some charts? Now's as good a time as any.
Alrighty. Well, it was super interesting because the writing was a little bit on the wall, right, guys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I mean, certainly when we were discussing it yesterday internally, I had this sneaky feeling that today was going to be a green day. I mean, remains to be seen how it holds up, but let's take a look. Kyle, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of what we talked about earlier this morning, Joel. Not to oversimplify things, but we saw price action trending downwards over the weekend. You know, new lows were achieved, but the volume was significantly lower day by day. And you know, it's one of the easiest telltale signs in trading is how volume correlates with price action. And when you see declining volume and prices trending a certain way, you know, there's a likelihood that a reversal will occur. And that's what we've seen. And I think what we really wanted to see more than anything in this falling wedge that's been created, I guess you could say, for 3 some odd weeks now, or the potential falling wedge, it's starting to look like the falling wedge was validated this morning, is we needed to see volume, right? We needed to see volume come through and actually follow through and see a positive price action correlated with that high volume move. And that's what we saw this morning. You know, that's what we saw in this move to 34.24. I think personally, I was late. I did not catch the breakout. But I've been scaling in this morning because I was net short for the longest time. And now I'm actually, I have serious exposure to crypto. About 50% of my current portfolio is in various cryptos, just indexed out like I've talked about on this podcast. So I like what I'm seeing here. I think that a reversal is due, and it looks like this could be the beginning of one, relief rally. I'm not so ready to call a bottom, but it does look promising for the short term. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at like the bigger time frames, and we, for example, take the RSI, we've been oversold for quite a while, and being oversold doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to reverse, but at some point you always reverse. So, like we closed our daily, no, our weekly actually below 30 last week, so that's a telltale. We did that once and then twice in the bear market of 2014. But before we actually really went under the 30, like really, really badly, we actually had a bounce of 65% in price. So could very well be something that we're going to see in the next few weeks. Not really sure. It could be a dead cat bounce, but we were bound for a bit of a bounce. And if you look at like the 3-day structure of the market, we would come down, consolidate, then another move down, and then always bounce. We've seen that a couple of times. And now we actually came down from 6,000. We had a little bit of a consolidation around like 4,000, 4,400, and then another move down. Usually this is where the market in the last year has seen a bit of a relief rally. So that's interesting. And what I really liked to see today is how we kind of bounced out of that falling wedge that Kyle was talking about, and actually seeing the volume. This is the volume of most large exchanges for Korean won, the Japanese yen, USD, euros, all combined. So it gives you a good idea of what's happening. So currently we're at resistance at $3,430, and I think if we can close above that and then range a little bit, I think a retrace to that level is going to be profitable to actually try and get a long in if you weren't long from the 32, 3,100 range. So I'm excited for Bitcoin here.
Yeah, I'm happy to see the volume come in too. We've seen some other bounces recently, not that too dissimilar from what we just saw. Even just at the beginning of December, we saw that pretty decent pump that eventually got rejected and led to this falling wedge. But there was no volume on that pump, to your point, just talking about what you said. So I like to see that as well. And also just a little bit more rudimentary, we'll take a step out and I'll share the chart that I've been sharing on the pod. I like to just kind of refer back to a lot of the same larger time frame swings here on the live stream. So let me go ahead and just share my screen here. But essentially, one of the things that we have what we've been talking about is like, was the last couple of weeks capitulation? That was something that I was trying to study a lot. A few weeks back, we talked about it extensively on the podcast, really just trying to identify capitulation, because following capitulation, we get into those consolidation phases. That's usually when you want to start accumulating. It's usually when you want to start making plays. So pulling up the same chart that I've had, here it is. I'll walk you through it if you can't see my screen, but essentially we had our breakdown on November 15th from 6K, as you guys remember, and what we were looking for was essentially a bounce eventually that would get rejected and then lead to this longer time frame consolidation. So here's this is actually looking at the exact same chart that I shared on our last episode. And what we're going to see if this plays out is we'll probably see Bitcoin. Like, I'm not flipping long here. I'm trying to maintain my hedge position short personally, not financial advice, but I'd be surprised to see Bitcoin break above 36. I'm looking at Bitfinex price right now, but 3,700, 3,650 in that range, without kind of getting rejected back down. And then ultimately playing inside this range. On the chart that I'm looking at, I have this blue kind of order block outlined from 31.75 up to 34.50. And the price played to that block really, really nicely, and ultimately bottomed out at 32.15. So just about $50 off there, not even $50 off there. I would expect to see some consolidation. So I'm looking for a rejection on Bitcoin here. I'm looking for some consolidation back to 3,300. And then I do believe that we'll have a good likelihood of continuing to follow this pattern, which essentially means that over the course of the next month or so, Bitcoin will consolidate yet trend slightly downward back towards 3K before ultimately finding the bottom. The range I have outlined here is 2,700. It's about basically 2,750, which is outlined in our dollar cost average strategy that we shared, and is also linked below the video on YouTube currently. From 2,750 up to 3,442. That's ultimately my accumulation range. That's where I'm looking to buy Bitcoin. But yeah, we were looking at this descending volume and descending price. It's not crazy to expect a bounce. I don't see us like breaking ultimately above 4K and then beginning an uptrend. Certainly, I want to accumulate in between 2,750 and 3,400. And again, that's outlined on our dollar cost average strategy that we shared.
Yeah, I'm kind of actually expecting some kind of volatility, but the reason why is because the open interest of longs and shorts combined has breached its all-time high on Bitfinex last
Wow.
weekend. So to share that in a chart that looks like this. Back in April, beginning of April, the open longs and short contracts on Bitfinex combined reached around 74,000 Bitcoin. And if you guys remember April, the start of April, we had a huge bounce of Bitcoin. We had large volatility, and the amount of open interest then decreased by people either getting squeezed on their shorts or closing their longs. Both things happened at the same time, probably. So I'm kind of expecting some volatility because of that. If there's a lot of positions open at some point, these positions will either get stopped out, liquidated, or closed, which obviously will create sell or buy pressure. I'm not saying whether it's going to be up or down, but it logically leads into volatility like looking at historic charts. And what we have seen on the weekly open long interest on Bitfinex is that we actually had the biggest weekly candle increase in open longs since April as well. An increasing long interest should normally also mean there's a bit more interest in the upside. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to play out. It could actually play out that we see those longs getting squeezed and that we actually dump. But a little bit of a relief rally would not surprise me here. But that's my take.
Those were two. For any listeners out there, those were two very good back-to-back analyses right there. So you should run that back. And if you listen to anything from that podcast, the last 5 minutes is where you should spend your time.
So one thing I want to ask, and Mohammed pointed it out in the chat, a year ago today, Bitcoin hit its all-time high. I wasn't in the space then. I wasn't trading crypto. It was probably the piece of news that got my attention. But what about you guys? Last year, on this day, how did you find out that your life just changed forever?
Oh, I felt like a baller.
But where were you? What was going on that you just? That's the thing is like, did you just look down at your Blockfolio and like?
No. I'll give you a play-by-play.
Happen?
So at this point, I was working at Grubhub and I was in sales. And I'm pretty sure at that moment I was about maybe 3 rows behind Joel because Joel was, managing a team and he was at the front of the room. And I stood up, I put my arms in the air. Pretty sure I yelled an expletive at him and then went back to our day jobs. But I think we both knew that our day jobs were coming to an end soon.
I had already quit Grubhub from a note. Like I had let them know way in advance. It took me almost 8 weeks to exit Grubhub. They wanted to replace me before I left. And I had been there for a long time. I had started that very early. So I stayed there for a while. I knew I was going to quit, but after like putting in my notice and stepping back from my career that I'd spent 5 years, like working on this startup and like building the sales program for this company, the scariest thing I ever did was quit, right? It was let them know, like, I'm going to walk away from a ton of stock and a ton of money and a ton of things. And I don't have a business that's even making me money right now. I think I'm going to do all right in crypto and like, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to start doing other things. So when that happened, yeah, I remember that obviously quite well. I remember being with Kyle and some other people who would eventually go on to join Bravado. Bravado was obviously going crazy. Like we had started quite a while, before that. So obviously on Telegram, we were celebrating, and those posts were getting 50, 60,000 views at the time. And, it was a really good time. It was a really special moment, but for me, that wasn't nearly as crazy as like when alt season happened. Like Bitcoin making that move up was cool, but I was someone who was balls deep in Dragon Chain and some other altcoins, and they can't. Bitcoin had nothing on Z Classic's 7,000% pump, or the day Bitcoin Cash pumped to $4,500, or the day Verge over the course of a couple weeks. 2 weeks after we covered it in the Bravado newsletter in the month of December, we cover it in the Bravado newsletter, and then Verge goes 3,000%. So that was when we were shitting our, but that was when we were looking at Blockfolio and just like,
dude, Verge, I bought Verge 60 sats. It went to 90. I thought I should take profit. This is decent. I thought, this was all before like really anything started to explode. And I sold it, and 3 days later it hit like 300, 400 sats, and then a week later it hit like 2,000 or whatever it hit. Like I was, dude, and I had so much money in Verge at that moment. Like, yeah, it just ran away. It was so funny. Really
the saddest part about Verge is that I never liked Verge. Some other guys on Bravado did, primarily from a price standpoint. It was so cheap. It ended up being McAfee's like first coin of the day or whatever. Like that was really what put it off, and then it started blowing up. So for two reasons: one, because I wrote about it in the newsletter, and then two, because I didn't really personally like it. There was a consensus. That's why it made it into the newsletter. Even though I didn't like it, we were like, this coin's probably going to pump. I didn't buy any. And so, for me personally, even though Bravado fam did really well on the Verge call, I actually didn't trade that. That was one that I missed. But, yeah, happy mooniversary, everybody. 1 year ago today, Bitcoin hit, $20,000 on, I think it only actually hit 20,000 on like Coinbase, but otherwise it was like 19 something.
One pro tip that I can tell you after going through last year is that when you pop the bottle of champagne, you should at least sell 50% of everything you own.
Yep.
Probably more.
Yep. That's good advice.
Quitting my job helped me a lot, because again, I didn't have outside of like trading, I didn't have like a paycheck that was guaranteed, and so I had to sell a bunch of crypto in order to rock and roll. And so I got lucky and sold.
Yeah, what's your television worth back in the day and nowadays?
so that's something I should specify too. Like, I have some good trades, but I also have a $60,000 TV in my house. Because I was selling Bitcoin to buy things when Bitcoin was $1,100, $1,200. Like I've had Bitcoin since 2015. So I had a couple poker hands that ended up costing me about 20 grand.
Dude, I hate to ask what you pay for the range.
The range was a good trade. The range is back to even now, but at one point that range was worth about $150K, but now it's worth about what I paid for it, because I bought that range when Bitcoin was around 3K. So good times.
Well, guys, if there's anything else,
altcoin market cap.
Let's do that. Let's jump in and look at the altcoin market cap.
Just a quick peek at the altcoin market cap, because that was something that you guys loved. The feedback I've gotten on the altcoin market cap that we've looked at over the last couple of months. So I actually haven't pulled up this chart since I made it until just now. So what I have outlined here, you guys might remember we had our meme head and shoulders on the total altcoin market cap. It was an inverse head and shoulders that started back in August. For the left shoulder, the head was September 11th. The right shoulder was forming at the end of October, and then it started to try to break out, and we had targeted about 102.7 billion as a breakout level. It did break out, but unfortunately got stopped short. I was still interested in accumulating some alts, but I had indicated on this chart that at $83.5 billion altcoin market cap, I'm out. That's where I'm going to sell any of my alt positions that are not in cold storage. So basically any of the trades that I've been trying to make in the 6 to 8 weeks prior. And once we broke that level, that $83 billion level that we talked about on this podcast countless times, the reason that level is important to us is because the order block
Bitcoin is moving, guys. Sorry, but it's
Bitcoin's moving.
It's breaking.
All right.
That's some juicy shit.
Pull up your screen. Yeah, so we fell out of the altcoin market cap at 83 billion, and then we just fell straight to hell. I mean, the whole entire market fell straight to hell. So I outlined anything below 75 billion as a level where many alts won't survive, and I do still think that's true. We've seen countless altcoins start to. We saw Substratum over the weekend was doing a YouTube video. They were basically swing trading their ICO Ether holdings to try to get money because they're out of. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we're going to see. So. We'll circle back on this next episode. Let's take a quick look at Bitcoin as it moves.
Yeah, it's trying to break out. It's forming a bit of a hidden bullish divergence, and it also formed a bearish divergence on the 15-minute and the 30-minute. So I'm not really sure if it's actually going to break out here. Could actually get rejected. It could have been like a stop run. We'll have to see. Like, I would not enter Bitcoin at all in the next 4 hours around these price levels, but wait and see what's going to happen. But, like if we can get a close in the next 8 hours above like 34.50 and then range a bit above it and then come back a little bit, that could potentially give us an entry for a long.
Sometimes, do you ever make gut plays, or do you ever just say, you know what, I'm going long? Because the chart's not always right, as we know. It's really successful trading is about risk management. It's not necessarily about drawing lines on charts, right? So how often are you making gut plays?
I did last night. I went long at $3,212.
That's what I'm talking about.
And, I said, this thing is going to go up. There's no other way. It's going to go up. And I did.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, if I'm honest, I tend to trust Max's gut. Max's gut usually makes me money, so I don't follow my gut as much as I follow his.
Yeah, well,
that's a pretty smart play. I like to follow Max's gut a lot as well. It's usually played pretty well for me, but I'll share this. I wasn't talking to Max last night. We don't talk every day. We don't talk enough. We need to talk more. But
sure.
But last night I was chatting with my buddy JMO. And so you guys can probably see this. This was last night. Hey, should we drop another short in on CBOE? Because we trade on the Chicago board trade. And I just said, hey, this is just all gut, right? I'm like, hey, I got the sneaky feeling tomorrow's going to be a green day. And then he said, okay, I'll hold off. And then today we're seeing some. So sometimes you just make those gut plays, and we didn't drop another short last night, and that worked out. So sometimes my point is, ladies and gentlemen, you don't follow an avatar on Twitter. You don't follow us on this live stream. Sometimes you don't even follow the chart. Sometimes you just got to make that gut play and put it all on red. And sometimes that's part of trading that I like to call gambling. And sometimes I enjoy it.
Guys, I think that's a good place to finish today.
It's
been a good
Monday.
show. I think that we
Monday.
covered it. It is. I mean, wrapping up the year, it's always a little bit weird, right? People tend to disconnect from everything as we get close to Christmas. I think that, for us as a show, I'm excited for us to finish this year out strong. And who knows how many shows we'll have between now and the end of the year, but we will be here to report in on anything that is relevant and make sure that you guys get to stay abreast of any news that comes out.
As long as Bitcoin is above 3K. Otherwise, we are switching the podcast. And we're going to do a cooking show. I have a sick kitchen. We're going to start teaching you guys how to cook all of our favorite bear market meals. Ramen, ramen souffle, ramen sushi, ramen cereal, ramen and ramen. Get ready.
Yeah.
If Bitcoin drops below 3K, we will not go anywhere, but we will not be talking about crypto.
Yeah, I'm an excellent cook. I can cook with expensive things. I can cook with cheap things. It doesn't really matter, but it usually tastes good. So I have a few recipes that I can share.
Look forward to it.
There we go.
We'll be back.
So if you'd like to avoid learning about Max and Joel's cooking skills, continue to buy Bitcoin, support your local Bitcoin exchange, and just mash that green button, keep buying, subscribe to the YouTube channel, show us some love. If you're on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you hear the podcast, again, let us know what you think. Leave us a comment, give us a 5-star rating, help us move the podcast up the rank so that people can actually get some great crypto content when they're looking for where to get things started. So
yeah, I do want to ask the folks on YouTube too, because they seem to be the most engaged from they're talking to us. I just want to say shout out to all you guys on YouTube making all the ramen jokes. Love that you guys join us, but we are interested in exploring different time slots for the show, for the live show anyways. And we're going to start working in some additional content, and we're going to be doing more than this. We're going to be doing 3 or 4 different shows. So if you have a preference of time, if 11:30 Central is actually not a great time for people to hop on YouTube, maybe it's in the evenings or what have you, maybe there's a weekend show, do let us know by sending us your feedback on Twitter or here in the comments on YouTube. But if anyone on YouTube, if you have the time, hop onto iTunes and leave a review on iTunes, because that gives us the best feedback, and it also tells other people what they can expect. So we only have a handful of reviews on iTunes, so we would appreciate if you drop that review, and we will keep coming back for more. God bless you guys. Cheers.